I'm Tammy Rivera, Executive Director and Lead Organizer of Southside Organizing Center, SOC or SOC for you old schoolers. All of us are still ready to serve you guys. Just communicate with us. We can call us 672-8090. Also, email is always available. SOC@socmilwaukee.org. And of course, our website, www.socmilwaukee.org. You'll find so much information, resources, and different ways that you can take action about COVID or Corona-19. We always have the most recent information available there. So please take advantage of all the information. Up until now, we haven't been able to be with you guys face to face. We know that the city is in the 4th stage, but because of all the cases of coronavirus on the south side, we're going to take some more precautions. We know that our offices and our personnel, lots of us are living in 53215, where there are still a lot of cases. So until we feel safe, that we're not in danger, until the numbers are stable, then we'll evaluate it all again and see if we're gonna start our services in person. But until then, we're available always like we have been, just virtually. Now you can see, if you see us on the screen without masks, it's because we're working from home. It's not that we're disregarding the recommendations. We're all working from home virtually. So then there's not a need to use a mask, because here I am alone in a room in my house. But of course, we're always cooperating with the orders that are out there. So we want to share 2 things. First, if there's information that you guys find useful, if we're sharing things that help you, if there's something that you appreciate or something that you want us to change, or even if you want us to add to the program, please fill out our questionnaire. It's necessary for us. We need to have a certain amount of surveys to know how we're doing and to be able to show our funders. There are so many resources that are available. We're dedicating a lot of resources to this forum. We just need to know if it's helping you. And the only way that we could know is if you communicate with us. The other reason, of course, sometimes for funds, it's required that we show that we are communicating with you. We are asking you guys for your opinion. So please help us out. It is necessary for us. So now, before we start the program, the same thing that I always share. The ideas and opinions shared on this show are not necessarily those of SOC. We're a certain type of nonprofit organization, so there are some things that we can't talk about and have opinions on. So we have created this place so that you guys can have a place to share your voice. It doesn't necessarily mean that it's our opinion. This is your place to be able to share your opinion and to talk openly, because us as a nonprofit organization, we can't always do that. So now, this week, we've talked about racism and racial injustice. Monday, we had Dr. Tony Baez with us, sharing a bit of an introduction, and he's going to be here again today. to talk about what we covered on Monday. On Tuesday, we had Reggie Jackson. We talked a little about the racism that we can experience within ourselves. Some people are saying that you can't hear me very well. So I'm going to change a few things here. Have some patience with me to make sure my microphone's working well. Hold on a second. Let me see here. I'm sorry if you can't hear me very well. I'm going to put up the volume a little, see if that helps. I've never had problems like this before. People can usually hear me very well. So, what we're going to talk about today, racial justice. Today we're talking to Tony Baez. Tomorrow, Deborah Blank. Friday, Dr. Rob Smith. He'll be here talking about reconciliation based in African community, a South African community. It's a model that maybe we can do something similar in the United States. So that's tomorrow. Now, we want to give another welcome to Dr. Tony Baez. Thank you for sharing your knowledge with us about racism and justice, racial justice. Good afternoon. Good afternoon again, Dr. Baez. You hear me well? Very well, thank you. Now, Dr. Baez, you were with us on Monday in English, a little bit of an introduction about racism and racial injustice. So let's talk a little bit about what you talked on Monday about the history, about how racism in the structure of the systems. And then maybe you can add a little something. Of course, if you would like, I'll talk a little bit about what I did on Monday. And I can do it a little better in Spanish. It's my preferred language. So racism, it's actually a form of prejudice. It's something that happened in this world for many years historically. And what we know about racism today, where if you think back to the European countries and Spain, and talking about slavery when they took over towns and then they turned them into slaves. But that wasn't considered racism. It wasn't until the Arabics invaded Spain in the 7th century around there. So it was kind of. So then they started looking for justifications. Why are these people here? And they started making comments. These black people, this dark people, they're not like us. And then there was a religious war, Catholics, Christians, and then the religion of the Arabics. So then they were looking for justification, how to get out the Jewish people, because there were Jewish people too. So then when the Spanish eventually take everybody out of Spain, the Jews, around the 92, around the same year that they conquered, when they come to the United States, they already have those feelings, those prejudices. And there's already the justification based on the color of people, based on they're not like us. So it's no surprise when they start with the Portuguese and the French and the English, they start turning people from Africa into slaves, into indigenous people into slaves in the New World. So these indigenous people had to justify it. And the Spanish people thought, oh, they don't have a soul. No, they don't have a soul, so they're part of the devil. if we're gonna talk about that, and then they turned them into slaves. But when they started to slave the indigenous people, you saw the industry developed. So then they started bringing more and more, and everything went more and more, and then they needed more labor. And then that's when they tried to start bringing the slaves from Africa, and they brought them over on big old boats. It was a terrible thing. And then we started talking about racial prejudice. So they bring people over from Africa, and they say they're less than us. So then that idea that those people of color, the Indians of color, the blacks of color, they're less than us. And they keep running with that concept throughout the years. And there's something really interesting. All of that is connected to colonialism, the colonization of the new world, the colonization of the colonization brought along all the prejudice and this idea that they were better. So the idea that the black people are human, but they saw them as less than human. And that's when the black slavery was seen. If you study racism, you know that racism in the US is directly connected to colonization. Especially in the United States, they came from Great Britain and the Mayflower and all that stuff. And then, as part of the colonization with the Portuguese over at the New World, and then Latin America, that colonization was so substantial. The oppression was horrible, and they were just treating people terrible. So today, we know racism because it continues in our communities. It continues in our world. This attitude continues. There's a civil war in the U.S. in this 1962 because the people from the North and the people from the South, and the South, there was still black slavery, and they were getting more money in the South. So then they wanted that done with because they were turning out to be more rich than the people in the North. So supposedly that's why they eliminated slavery. But you really think that the people in the North cared about the slaves? No, they just didn't want them to be a possession of people in the South. So eventually they come up with the laws. Those laws established, okay, we have to finish up with slavery in the US. But finishing up with slavery wasn't something new in the US. Latin America had already done it. In Haiti, they had already done it because those were African Haitians. So lots of countries in Latin America had already eliminated slavery. Look at Brazil. I think 1866, Brazil eliminated it. When Lincoln and his people, to unify the country, the white people from the South were worried because they were going to lose their black working folks. They start to pass laws to be able to keep dominating the black people. But then we also start seeing laws to keep dominating over the Mexicans too, because the Mexicans were in the Southwest and they were also laborers. They were workers, and they saw them the same way that they saw the black people, like slaves. That lie that, no, we're the only tired people in the world, like some black people think. No, us too. They used to say that to the Latinos all the time. I know, of course, black slavery was much worse. Now, that situation that happened throughout the years created new laws for the South law, and those are known as the Jim Crow laws. So the Jim Crow concept, there was African American on the TV, and they, did certain things about him. But around 1882, around there, and moving forward, they approved all those laws to segregate the groups, to separate the Blacks and the Latinos and the indigenous people, the Indian reservations. They separated us all because the white people were better than us. So then that mentality kept going, that they were superior. That mentality kept up till 1954, when the Supreme Court of the U.S. acted and they passed Brown versus Board of Education to finish with that whole separation of people. That law was approved. But at the same time, when that law was approved, the Supreme Court, 1 week before, they had a case with Latinos. The case was Hernandez versus the state of Texas. And the court finally, referring to us as Latinos in 1954, since that time they're saying Latinos. No, not just Mexicans, everybody that understands that group of people that speak Spanish. So then the court says there's parts men here, there's restaurants, men here, white here. So racism, the prejudice exists against Latinos too. It's never mentioned in the court because they kind of try and cover up everything that's happening, especially talking about slavery. But you can't fight that if you don't understand it. The decision of 1954 about Hispanics declared us a ethnic group, a racial group that was predisposed to prejudice and racism. And that's how they thought they were going to eliminate segregation. That doesn't mean much in this country. And then the implementation, everything stayed the same. The white people have the power. They have the political power, the economic power. They keep approving laws. So the white liberals had to fight to be able to do what they wanted to do. In 1965, Civil Rights Act passed. That act talks about everybody in the world. Prejudice against groups for reasons about nationality, prejudice against race, prejudice against sexual orientation, religion. It talks about everybody. But there is a history of racism, of colonialism. Puerto Ricans that came here, for example, they're part of the Latino group. They came from a colonized country named Puerto Rico. In the Southwest, there was a different kind of colonization, an economic colonization, where the Mexicans were a labor force. So the Puerto Ricans came from a different area. There were Blacks. There was slavery. So you see many cities, the Mexicans and other groups, there's all these different nationalities now, and they've all had different experiences with colonialism and racism. Cubans in Miami have experienced something different than Puerto Ricans and Mexicans here. And then there's people from Honduras, people from El Salvador. Racism exists against all of us, especially if you have skin color that's different. Very good, Dr. Baez. So we were also saying that about racism and being Hispanic. There are other areas where there's prejudice. There are some more for discrimination because of your immigration status, or discrimination because of you speak a different language, or discrimination because English isn't your first language, or because you're a minority. There's even discrimination inside of your own people. Depends on how indigenous you are. So Mexicans that are against Indios, or Puerto Ricans that are against certain groups if you think somebody is Jibaro. Because in our community, we use that as a term of endearment, but we can also use it negatively too. So talking about color, there are other areas that are a whole nother area of discrimination. Exactly. There's all these classifications over time. Because talking about racism and discrimination in between us today, the idea of what's happening with this racist attitude in this country, talking about education, police, health, it's something that affects just one group? No, that's not true. For example, Latinos have suffered a lot in this country. We've seen what has happened to the African Americans, but no way are we gonna say that Latinos didn't suffer. In the Southwest of the US, more than 485 documenting cases of hate crimes. Just because somebody spoke Spanish, they threw something at him. Or because he looked too Mexican, they treated him bad. Something like that. That has to do with just being Hispanic. And it causes fear in a lot of white people in this country. Like an example, I know we don't have too much time to talk about this, but there's so much to say. I know 1 week, 5 days is not enough. No, I'm not going to be able to cover everything, but an example, the cases that have gone to court in this country that have to do with segregating people, to separate them. That started in 1912 for the Hispanics. We were going to court and winning back in 1912. In certain parts of this country before African Americans. In 1946, there was a decision, federal court of Hernandez versus West Mines in California. A Puerto Rican male married a Mexican, and then it caused all these problems. And then the daughter didn't want to be discriminated against and goes to court and wins. She won in 1948. There was a federal order. And that was used as a pass for the decision that was made about the African Americans in 54. So we've been part of this fight against segregation. There's no doubt about that. Now it's a historical moment. Now we're protesting for everything that's happening. And we're protesting for more than one thing. One thing, because the deaths that have occurred. These deaths are horrible. Look at George Floyd on the TV, because now everything's on TV. We see the videos. Everybody's on their phone. Everybody's got a camera on their phone. So then people think that that's only against that group. No. At the same time that that's happening, the police in this country kill Indians on their reservations 3 more times than they're killing Black people. But you don't see that on the news. There are so many Latinos dying because of health disparities. They're immigrants, they're undocumented, they don't have access to health care or opportunities like other people do. These are people that, have just crossed the border. The people that are packing meat and working in the factories. If you see the number of people that are dying in this country in the last 2 or 3 years, there's so many more Latinos, many more indigenous people than African Americans. But what takes us to the streets to protest is the racist acts against African Americans. I want to be clear. We got to be done with that. This should not be happening to African Americans. But the process, we don't want to be ignored. we're 60 million in this country, probably a little more. We're 15, 20 million more than African Americans. So some parts of this country, we're the majority. I've had to talk about cases in Hartford, Connecticut that was introduced by an African American talking about a school in Connecticut. They were separating the blacks and the whites. And when I went to talk with some Hispanic parents, the school was predominantly Latino. So this is happening all over the country. Here, we're only 28% of the population, but we're growing. When I started with this education, bilingual stuff, we were 4%. Now we're 28%. But now we have private schools. And then the private schools take a bunch of these kids and they turn them into students. And I know that approximately 8,000 students are at private schools. Imagine if they were at public schools, the number of Latinos in public school would go up even more. So what's happening with the problem with racism in this country is not a civil rights issue. We had certain protections come by the Civil Rights Act, but that racism goes so much more than civil rights. It's talking about economics, politics, health, voting, trying to quiet their votes because they think that blacks and blacks and Hispanics vote a certain way. So we know that there have been so many cases at the Supreme Court. Why do you think that the Republicans are fighting to control the Supreme Court? Because every time they see a case about Supreme voting, if they're Latino or if they're black, the conservative judges vote against that. Now, obviously, coronavirus is affecting us unproportionately. In the city, there are more Latinos infected and dying than any other one. So racism is something that affects everybody. Eliminate racism. The concept of justice, racial justice, is to find justice so that racial groups so they don't keep suffering the discrimination. It's gonna take a while. I've been doing this 54 years to try and find equality in Milwaukee. You can see I'm old, but I'm gonna have to keep fighting. This is not gonna be resolved immediately, but that doesn't mean we stop. In the protests today, they do have impact, but this is not just an African American point. Now we are the Latinos, the whites, we're all part of a new generation of young people. Sometimes I think of my young friends. And I had to get into different organizations, and that epic in like the 60s and 70s. Now there are other organizations in those. But well, there's no way we're going to be done with racism until we face all of the economic issues too. Capitalism has been the base for the growth of the racism in this country. That's why the states in the South wanted to keep with their slaves for their capital. So that capitalism still affects us. And there are some Latinos that are taking it too. They're thinking, okay, maybe we do this here. Maybe the police shouldn't be using a chokehold. Those are small reforms. We have to do them, and I don't doubt that at all. We have to keep fighting about that. But eliminating racism, we have to start it with us. We have to stop with our prejudice against any racial group. I'm sorry, it's stupid. I'm sorry, but it is ridiculous thinking Latinos saying, oh, those blacks. That's ridiculous. we are also part of this. We're part of the population of color that's being affected by racism. We do have parts of us that are Black. Some of us more than others. Some of us half Puerto Rican, half Black. So the population, the generation is multicultural. The population is bringing a new perspective to these conversations. These new perspectives that are symbols of racism have to go. So the thing that's happening with the statues where they knock them down, the symbols of the Confederation, those are symbols from a part of the Civil War, and they lost the war, but we still got the symbol there with the Confederate flag and talking about if the war is still here and like they won. So there are all kinds of things like that, and even in the northern parts of the U.S. They reflect and celebrate some guy who lost the war in 1866. Well, if he lost it, why is his statue there? So the young people are knocking them down. There's so many symbols that have to do with racism. Okay, and they want to knock them down. No, they're not accepting it. Nope. It's a new modality. Let's see, Dr. Baez. Let's see what the comments are with our participants. Hello, Maria. Hello, Trini. Hello. Let me see what Maria is saying. It's very sad against the Black people and the white people. It's very sad that we don't just get together. They think that some Hispanics think that they're white. At home, I think she's saying that we do need to educate our kids. So our time is running out. We have talked just a tiny bit. It's gigantic. A half an hour, few times a week is not even a drop in the bucket, but we're going to keep talking about this with Dr. Baez. Thank you again for being with us. We appreciate it. Thank you. So now, folks, hopefully you guys liked this conversation. If you want to comment, if you have more questions, we can keep going with this conversation and talk more with Dr. Baez or with other guests. So now we're going to invite Gabe Charles, our civic engagement coordinator, and we're going to see what kind of report she's got for us. Hello, Gabe. Oh, I'm sorry. Hola. Today's Spanish. So I'm very excited today to bring on Maria. She's a representative from the Census Office to talk a little bit about the census and to help us understand a little more about the census and about the confidentiality and privacy part of it. So let me bring Maria on to learn a little more. Hello, hello. How are you? Good, thank you. Good to hear. We are so happy that you're here with us. We've been looking for a representative from the Census Office for a while, just to clear up a few questions that people have. It's a pleasure to be here. We've been promoting the census for some time on this forum, and then we're also calling people at home through a phone bank. Very good. So something that a lot of people have said is that I don't have papers, I can't do the census, or they're expressing their fear because it's the government and they don't want to give their personal information. what message can you give us about privacy and confidentiality and the information that we share? So one of the things that I can say about the census is that since I started working here in February, and one of the first things that we have to do is take an oath. It's to protect all of the information that is given from people. And it's a Title III law of the a code for the United States. Everything is confidential, and it's to protect all of the people, to protect their information, and we can only use it for statistics. The statistics help us to see how they can distribute different funds in the organizations and communities, schools. So all of us that work here have to take the oath. And it's not just an oath for the census. It's an oath for life. My friend lives over here, and no, that it's something you hold onto that information for life. We're talking about immigration and court. No, all of this is confidential, and the information is not shared with anybody else. So you guys heard it. The census office cannot share any information with any other agency, any other government agency, anything for tax purposes, anything like that. Right? Right. Can you, let me see if there's any questions in the comments area here, just to clear up a few things. Another thing, how can we benefit as a community completing the census? Well, the importance is it's going to decide what happens for 10 years. These are the funds that the government gives to every state, to every community. Their impact will last for 10 years, and it'll be the same amount for 10 years. It could be how many babies were born. That then affects how many people go to school, and that will affect us for 10 years. That's part of schooling. In an area, they count all of the people and they count more, then they're going to get more funds. In certain neighborhoods, if you don't count everybody, and then that's money that they're losing to fix the streets, for the schools, for community programs like community colleges, the firefighters, all of these different kinds of things that can serve. If you have a business and you want some funds so that the government can help, scholarships, grants, all of that comes from the government can go up if you have more people, but you have to count them correctly. Another important thing, me as a citizen, I worry about how many representatives we're going to have in Congress. I worry if there's going to be more people representing us. So that's also something that's super important, because if we don't count everybody, then okay, Wisconsin needs less representation. And so if we don't get counted, then we have less representation in Congress, and that's also super important. Yes, exactly. Thank you so much for that information. We also know lots of Latinos weren't counted in the last census. Do you have any advice to help people to motivate the Latino community to fill out the census? I know right now there's people that are scared, and they think that that's why we're doing these video conferences. There are forms that you can do online. You can do it from your house on your cell phone. I did mine on my cell phone. You can do it on the computer. You can do it on your phone, like I said. I'm here as a representative, but also as part of the community to help out. And we have more people that are willing to help too. We can help on the phone, just so that obviously we can't have contact because of the pandemic, but we're here to help, because I know soon people are going to start going door to door, and people are scared of that. People are going to go. We're all going to have identification for the census, so that you guys know that the person has an official identification, that they are from the census. I know that you shared a flyer that I'm going to put up now, and you can keep talking about anything else you'd like to. Yeah, and if you have questions, you can always ask me too. We also have that we're hiring people. And of course, this flyer that you're sharing is so that people can see that if they want to work for the census, you only need 3 things: 18 years or older, social security number, and an email. That's it. It doesn't matter your legal status. It doesn't matter. You just need to have, right now they're asking if you are bilingual, because we know that the lowest numbers come from communities where there are lots of bilingual people. So you can contact me, you can contact the other contacts on the flyer, and we would love to give you more information. You can see 2020census.gov. That's our site where you can go to apply for jobs or ask us questions. Very good. So here's another one that's talking about the different ways that you can fill out the census. So on April 1st or March 1st, I can't remember, sorry. This was mailed. I'm sorry, a form was mailed. There was 16 numbers, and those numbers are, it's your code, your identification code. So then when you get it, you're registered. You can also do it over the phone, on the computer. If you do it on the computer, it's quicker. Obviously, mail takes a little longer. Since I work, I'm not sure how they do it to see who mails them in, but online is quicker and faster and easier. So the people that are going to be knocking on doors, they're going to be taking the information of who's already filled it out. And that'll decide where they have to go, which doors they have to knock on. And we'll have a program that will tell us which houses we have to go to. And that'll help us with the information. Very good. So if you don't want somebody knocking on your door, fill it out. Fill it online, regular mail, phone. Yes, we can help too. We are definitely here to help in Spanish. We have other representatives in more than 60 different languages. Maybe Hmong, Chinese, different languages. We have all these different representatives available in all these different languages. And I almost forgot to ask about your role at the census office. What is it that you do? I don't work in the office. My office is my house, because we have access where we can put all of our information, all of our work hours, but I also have a special phone to be able to do like conference calls. So I started as a representative in February, and then I started doing more. So some people go just for a little while. Some people want full-time jobs, and we can do that too. Some people want to know how to help people fill out the census. I think 2 weeks ago, I was helping on 14th and Beecher for a food pantry. I'm sorry, 14th and National. And we were there helping people fill out the census right there. We couldn't help everybody. Not everybody had time. We asked if they could maybe do it via phone later on, because they were worried kind of about confidentiality too. So we're there helping people. We're always doing our social distance, obviously. obviously following all of those suggestions. Wow, that's great. It's good hearing that. Okay, last question. When are they going to start going out into the community, knocking on the doors of those people that haven't done the census? They haven't given us the date yet, but what I understand is that because the numbers of COVID are going up, they don't want to put their employees at risk or the community, obviously. So they're trying to train us, and we're looking for some trainings. I know some people that have already done some trainings and that are doing them this coming week. So they're trying to find places in the community where they can be trained. Before, it used to be in downtown, but now I think they're doing it on Serb Hall, 51st in Oklahoma, because it's a bigger space. So then you can have more social distance. That's required by the law. So I know they're doing some there now. I'm not sure if there are other places as well, but I know that they're doing it there too. That they're training those that speak English, those that speak Spanish. So I know that we're not knocking on doors yet. My training was only 3 days. But sometimes there are shorter ones to be able to just help fill out forms and do whatever they need in that moment. And a lot of the training is online. All of your training is paid as well. They pay for your miles as well. So it's something that can help people right now, and there's not a lot of work. Very good. So there is still time to apply to be a census worker. Yeah, we already shared the link with you guys. We're going to keep sharing it so that you can have access to it. Maria, thank you so much. Thank you. Let's see if there's any questions here. Of course, of course. I don't see any. I don't see anything. Well, thank you for your time, Maria, and we'll see you another day. Of course. And you have my information. Any questions you might have, you can always put my number up. Yes, let's share your number, your phone number, in the chat that we have. And then we can put it up afterwards. Yep, I'll put it on there. Thank you. Thank you. Take care. Thank you. All right, great information. This is information that we've been sharing, but it's always good to hear it from somebody else, for somebody that works from the census. So now I'm going to share information about early voting, in person early voting. Let me find it. I'm also translating. Okay, let me see it. So there is early voting. It already started yesterday, Tuesday, and it's going to keep going all the way up until August 9th at these 3 places: Seidler Municipal Building, Manitoba School, and Midtown Center. So that's Tuesday, July 28th till Sunday, August 9th. Monday to Friday, 9 to 5, Saturday and Sunday, 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. And then there are other places that you can go to for in-person early voting. It is a little more limited, only 1 voter at a time. So you've got the following libraries: Bayview East, Mitchell Street, Tippecanoe, Villard Square, Washington Park, and Zablocki. So that's Tuesday, July 28th until August 8th, just Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Saturdays from 9 in the morning to 3 in the afternoon. So we will share all of this again in our Facebook page. Also, to finish up, I'm going to leave you guys with a video, a census video, a new one. I hope you like it. Hello. You know who I am? I'm all the Latinos that live in this country. I'm all the men. I'm all the women. And I'm all the kids. I'm a hard worker. And the one that works double shifts, triple shifts. And I'm those that have worked hard for us before. I'm the one that came and stayed. I'm the one that was born here. I'm the one that was brought over when she was little to dream big. So I'm every Latino in this country. And every 10 years, we have the opportunity to help our communities, clinics, schools, new businesses, a better future. So the census is coming. And legally, all of your information is protected. The census is coming. Help your future. Start here. Thank you, Gabe and Maria. Thank you for all of that. I want to add something, folks, about privacy, about information in the census. Marianne said that lots of people are scared to fill out the census because of fear of the government. Let me share some information, something that trained us, the regional office, census office. I took some of my personnel there for training, and two things that I think it's important for you guys to understand. 2 times the law has affirmed that you cannot share information, all the way up to the level of the president. I mean, we're talking about the executive level. So in 1999, the Office of the Judicial Council concluded that the laws for the census replace all of the other laws. That means it's superior, it's stronger, it beats it. And then in 1999, they decided you cannot share any information, any personal information for any person that completed the census with ICE or any other immigration service or naturalization service. So legally, at such a high level, it has been affirmed about the right of privacy is bigger than the government, even if they're asking for information, especially if they're talking about documentation for legal status. So again, in 2010, the same office, the Office of Judicial Council, confirmed again. If you remember, around that time, they were talking about the Patriot Law. So they affirmed that you cannot share information, personal information for the census, not even for the Patriot Act. So 2 huge opportunities that confirm that you cannot share the information. So there were 2 other ways to explain to it. And like Gabby explained earlier, the president is trying to scare us, to scare the people to not complete the census. Why? Because it's so important. The population needs to be counted. And for our representation in Congress and for the resources. So imagine if all of the people that aren't documented don't fill it out, guess what's going to happen? There's not going to be any money. There's not going to be money to fix the streets. There's not going to be work. So it's so important that we fill it out. So Maria shared her information, her telephone number if you need help or if you have questions. So now we're going to keep going. We're going to invite the questionnaire video so that Marisol can remind us to visit it. Has this forum been helpful for you? What can we improve? What can we change to make it better? Let us know by responding to our short questionnaire. You can find it in the comment section. So that way we can keep running with the forum. Thank you for your time. Maria says to manipulate and scare. That's why he's saying that, but he doesn't have any right to do it. And the important thing is to count the population, not the citizens. The census is for everybody living here. It doesn't matter if you have papers or not. We know that our communities we provide so much. Taxes, labor, that's what's happening. So let me remember you guys about what's happening this week, what's coming up. We're going to keep talking the week of the theme of racism and racial injustice. Tomorrow, we're going to have Dr. Deborah Blanks with us. Friday, Dr. Rob Smith from the Marquette University. And then he is going to be talking about how we can have a future where we don't have this problem called racism. He's going to talk a little bit about the reconciliation based on his experience in South Africa. Super interesting, the conversation that we're going to have with him. So today was the first time in this year of the CCC. You remember I've talked about this since the beginning of the forum. And today, the committee officially met again, and we changed from committee to commission. So today, we chose Nate Hamilton as the president of the committee for unanimously. So if you guys don't know Nate is the brother of Dontre Hamilton, who was killed by police downtown. If you remember, Dontre was sleeping. He had some mental health challenges. And so I think the police, if I remember right, it was like, it was way too many times because he was sleeping. So then, so anyways, that's his brother. So he's going to be our new president. So today at 5:30, the Fire and Police Commission is going to have an official meeting. If you remember, I've been announcing that we've been fighting to try and get a way for us to co-create a policy for community policing. The group has done so much work. We've fought to just exist. But today we are going to be present, the CCC. I'm sorry, now it's the commission, not the committee. And we're going to be at the Fire and Police Commission meeting to start the process about how we, together with the police, together with the commission and other organizations, how can we co-create a new outlook with the police and the community? We have hope. It's not going to be easy. It's not easy. But today at 5:30, you guys can see the meeting on TV. We're going to ask Andrea to share the links I do have an announcement on Facebook too. That way you can see it there. And then you can see it, the report as well. We've had over 45 different community groups that have shared their opinion about how we can help better the situation. So thank you for being here. Thank you, Dr. Baez, for being with us again. Thank you for taking the time. Thank you, Maria, for being with us and bringing all the information about the census. Have a great evening. Stay safe, and we'll see you tomorrow at 3 o'clock on SOC. We're going to leave you guys with our thanks to our sponsors.